Got it.
That's it, right?
Yep. That's it.
Sorry.
That's me. That's me.
Okay, should we start? Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Mauna Vyakhya Prakatita Parabrahma Tattvam Yuvanam Varshistante Vasatrishganai Avrita Brahmanishtai Acharya Indram Karakalita Chandrupam Swatma Ramam Mudita Vadanam Dakshinamurthi Mide Vatavidapi Samipe Bhumi Bhage Nishannam Sakalamuni Janana Jnanadataram Harat Tribhavana Gurumisham Dakshinamurti Devam Janana Marana Dukkha Cheda Daksham Namami Chitram Vatataro Mule Vriddha Shishya Gurur Yuva Gurostu Maunam Vyakhyanam Shishyastu Chinna Samshaya Nidaye Sarva Vidyanam Vishaje Bhavaroginam Gurave Sarva Lokanam Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Ishvaro Gururatmati Shuddha Jnanaikamurtaye Nirmalaya Prashantaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyakta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Vishwam Darpana Dishyamana Nagari Tulyam Nijantargatam Pashyannatmani Mayaya Bhairivo Bhutam Yatha Nidraya Yat Sakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Swatmanamevatvayam Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Bijasyantarivangkuro Jagadidam Prangnivikalpam Punaha Maya Kalpita Deshakala Kalana Vaichitrya Chitrikritam Maya Viva Vijambayatyapi Maha Yogi Vayasvechaya Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. Yasyaiva spuranam sadatmakam asatkalparthakam bhasate sakshat tattvam asiti vedavachasa yo bodhayatyashritam yas sakshat karnat bhavena punara vrittirbhavam nidhau tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namahidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. Nana Chitra Gatodarastitamaha Deepa Prabhabhaswaram Jnanam Yasya Tu Chakshuradhikaranam Dvara Bahispandate Janamiti Tameva Bhantamanubhat Yetat Samastam Jagat Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namahidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. Deham pranamapi indriyanakacharam buddhim cha shunyam viduhu Sri balanda jadopamasvamiti Branta prusham vadinaha Maya shakti vilasa kalpitamaha Vyamoha samharine Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namahidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. Rahu grasta divankarendu sadrisho Maya samachadana Sanmatra karanopasamharanato Yo buddhishuptah pama Pragaswapsaviti prabodha samaye Yat pratyabhigyayate Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namahidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. Bharyadishvapi chakradadishu tatha Sarvasvavasthasvapi Vyavrittasvanuvartamanah Ityantas purantam sada Svatmanam prakati karoti bhajatam Yo mudraya bhadraya Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namahidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. Vishvam pashyati karya karanataya Swaswami sambandataha Shishyacharya tataiva pitru Putradhyatmana vedataha Swapne jagrati maya esha purusho Maya paribhramitaha Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namahidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. Muram Vasyanano Nilom Paramahat Adhyatmam Ityabhati characharatmakamidam Yasyaiva mrutyashtakam Nanyat kinchana vidyate vimshatam Yasmat parasmat vibho Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namahidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. Sarvatmatmamiti sukritamidam Yasmadamshminstave Tenasya shravanat tadartamanana Dhyanasya sankirtanat Sarvatmatmamavibhuti sahitam Syadishwaratvam svataha Siddhetar punarashtada parinatam Chaishwaryam yahatam.
So we begin the 6th verse today. Rahu grasta divan karendu sadrisho maya samachadanat, etc. So let us quickly revise the 5 verses that have gone before that, so you have a sense of what were the main topics in each one of those 5. And that brings us to this one here. So, as you know, we have talked about this before, that the first 3 verses are what were called Shravana Pradhana. Shravana Pradhana. Shravana Pradhana means that it basically defines what Vedanta's not, I think that we need to maybe just increase the volume a little bit. It is be there.
It was.
I actually forgot to bring my, this is the old one, but it should be working.
Hear it. It's not that long.
I mean, this is as close as I can put it on my, hello, 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 hello. I think maybe from the speaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Yeah, that's better.
A little better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Much better.
If it doesn't
Buzzing.
hum,
Yeah.
Echo.
Echo.
echo will be there a
Yeah.
little bit.
You know what, though? Just we need to bring it a little
One
bit
more?
forward.
No, because this is the last.
Then drop it down. Reduce the
Stop
volume.
touching it though.
Yeah, I
Reduce the
can't touch
volume.
it. Can't touch it.
Yeah, little bit, yeah, further like
This, by the way, we are going
Not
to,
too
we're working on an improvement of the sound, lighting, along with HCI.
See, the humming comes from there. Maybe we need to go a little bit behind.
Then you'll have that.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
the,
Something how it comes from these connectors.
Yeah.
okay, we'll get used to the hum. Just think of it as oh,
Yeah.
so hum,
So, that's right.
saha aham. So the first 3 verses are Shravana Pradhana. So that what that means is that the thesis of Vedanta is summarized in the first 3. What is it that Vedanta is telling you? What is the issue? Why are you making a mistake? And so this is just this should be called Shruti. Shruti. So as opposed to Yukti, which is our own analysis of what the Shruti is saying. But this is exactly what Vedanta is saying. So the first 3 verses are what's called the Shravana Param, Shravana Pradhana or Shravana Param. Then the next 3 or 4 verses will be Manana Param. So once the thesis has been presented to you, now you have to start examining it. Because it doesn't get absorbed right away. It's almost like, you eat the food and then you digest it. And they say that you cannot really get the benefit of eating until you digest it. By eating a food, you enjoy the taste of it. But it hasn't benefited your body yet. It is not until you really digest it that you can begin to get the benefit of the eating of the food. So in some way, the mananam is the digestion. You have to chew on it. And so that's what the next 3 verses will be. And then in the end, we will go into Nididhyasanam. It's a very short form of all 3 of them. So anyway, that is that's the progress of the 10 verses. Now, the first verse was termed by Swami Maheshanandji as Atma Pratyak Swarupam. Atma Pratyak Swarupam. So in a very short, revised way, what it means is that do not look for yourself as a manifestation of yourself. You cannot manifest yourself, because the way we evaluate everything in our life is some things are manifest in front of us in the form of experiences, and then we chew on it, we analyze it, what are the experiences, and we label it as good or bad, derive some lessons from it, and we go on in our life. This is what it is all about. And this is what everyone is doing for everything in their life. Everyone is doing everything in their life in this manner, which is that you wait for the manifestation, and then you evaluate the manifestation. Manifestation means in the form of experiences, and then you act on it. This is what we all do. But here, by saying that Atma Pratyak Swarupam, it says this method does not apply to yourself. Why? Because Atma never manifests itself. You cannot see in front of you like you can others. And so anytime you make a judgment about yourself, any kind of a judgment, not only the judgment about others, but specifically about yourself, it is going to be wrong. Any kind of a thing, either positive or negative. Supposing you say, wow, I'm doing very well, I should really be congratulated, I'm doing extremely well. It's wrong. It's wrong. Or if you say just the opposite, that I am not doing well, I've got a lot of problems, and people don't seem to like me, I don't know what to do. This is also wrong. Both negative and positive. Why? Because you are making a judgment on something which is not you. Because it is manifested already. Now, you may have to derive yourself from what your. So the perfect example is that you are really looking at yourself in the mirror, and you think this is what you are. But the reality is you are different than from your. And of course, there the example is not perfect, because in the case of a reflection in the mirror, it looks pretty much like you. It's not that much of a difference. But here, this is totally different. You are unlimited, and your reflection is limited. And so you are Mahakasha, and your definition is as a Ghatakasha, as a vessel Akasha, and so on. Anyway, I don't want to go into the details, because then I'll be repeating the whole explanation again. I just want to give you a summary and get to the 5th, 6th verse. Anyway, what it means is Atma Pratyak Sarupa. And in saying that, it says, then what is this whole phenomena? There, Shankaracharya says that the phenomena is just like you have the entire reflection of an active city scene in the mirror. And the mirror is untouched by the scene, but yet it is superimposed upon the mirror. It looks like it. Similarly, here also, Bahirivo Bhutam Yatha Nidraya. It is nothing, it just doesn't happen. Just same thing in Swapnavastha also. Okay, one other thing in talking about Swapnavastha. The first 3 verses are going to be focused on the thoughts and how the thoughts appear. So it is all what is called Chit Swarupa. So so it is Chit Swarupa is the first 3 verses. So even when you are analyzing a swapna, you are analyzing your thoughts in the swapna, and which are either correct or not correct, that is a separate matter, but it is all to do with Chit Swarupa. So the first three verses are highlighting the Chit Swarupa. Anyway, so that's another thing to keep in mind. So they are Pramana, they are Shravana Pradhana, and they are Chit Swarupa. And they are basically explaining how the phenomena works. So that was the first verse. Then the second verse talked about how did it who does it? How does it happen? So there the role of Ishvara as a creator was talked about. That just like magic. And so one other thing that you will notice is that in the 10 verses of Dakshinamurthi stotram, other than the word Dakshinamurti, somebody should do a counting actually. The word Maya occurs most frequently. And this is an important thing that we should really know. So the how it happens, how the Ishvara has created this and so on, is through Maya Shakti. So the understanding of the Maya Shakti is a very important one and not very difficult. It's just that we don't accept it. We say, what? How can this happen? So the definition of Maya is Aghatita Ghatiyasi Maya. It makes impossible things possible. Aghatita. Aghatita means not possible. Impossible. That cannot happen. But it makes it happen. This is the Maya Shakti. Anyway, so the second verse is the role that Ishvara plays, and Ishvara in the form of his Maya Shakti in making this happen. It's possible. It is very much like when you see a rope to be something else, like a snake. You can say, how is that possible? How could I make that mistake? Well, it's possible. It's possible. And so, you should think that if I look at the snake, then if I look at the rope, then I should take it as rope. But you falsely superimpose something else on it through some kind of a Shakti, which just confuses you. It's possible. So this is what the Maya Shakti is. That was number 2. Then in number 3, then the role of the Jiva, in how the Jiva gets confused, was talked about. And the phenomena of, at the macro level and the micro level, is resulting in the same, so there is a complete identity. It's not a different phenomenon. So the way the magic occurs and the way the person gets confused by the magic is really the same. There's nothing, no big difference in it. So now, so this is what was called Atma Advaitam. Advaitam means that in that manner, the phenomena of Ishvara creating the magic and the phenomena of the Jiva being deluded by the magic ultimately remains the same. In fact, as you know, one of the issues of progressing is that you have to see that we are nothing but an expression of Ishvara. So in fact, it is not an exaggeration to say that Ishvara is acting as you. In fact, just like in these Bollywood movies, where you have the same person playing multiple roles, similarly is the case. There's only one person that plays the different roles. So for us to keep Ishvara away from us is not correct. Not correct. Our thoughts, our creation of the body, the way we act and so on, is really nothing but an Ishvara's own creation. And so the Advaita Atma is valid in that sense. So that was number 3. So with that, the phenomena, then the Tatpara and the Tvampada and the Ekatvam completes the Shravana of Vedanta in the first 3 verses. This is how it was done. Then, now, the examination of the Shravanam starts with the 4th verse. Okay? So, there the definition given by Swami Maheshananji is Atma Satchit Rupam. Satchit Rupam. And so what it means is that the creation in terms of its intelligence and the creation in terms of its material are one and the same. Abhinna nimitta upadana karanam. So this was talked about. Then, as part of verse number 4, when Mananam started, this is what is called Samanvaya. So Samanvaya is a word which means consistency. The consistency of the vision. There is nothing missing in it. It is a complete vision. And I don't see that. I don't see the completeness of the vision. So the Samanvaya has to be tested in 2 ways. The first way was given in verse number 4, because now the Mananam has started. And the second way was given in verse number 5. So the way the Samanvaya was tested in the 4th verse was our own personal experiences. Okay? So our own personal experiences, not verified by any deep thinkers or something, but my own thinking. This is where it is, and I don't understand it. And so you have to reconcile the Samanvaya of the Shruti with my own thinking. This formed the verse number 4. Then in verse number 5, not only is my own thinking, but the thinking of the various schools of thought also should be seen that they actually amplify your own confusion. Because you think that this is just me, or maybe I don't know any better, I am not a very educated person and so on. But then you find that some of these schools, they have, and in fact, it's very interesting that in many of our literature, even the people who we don't agree with, we also respect them a lot, because they have went deep into it, and they made some errors here and there and went to the wrong path. But to a large extent, we are very appreciative of their intelligence and their insight. And then through the examination of this intellect, we find out where they went wrong. And all this is not to criticize, as we saw in the last verse, that, deha pranamiti indriyani api, and then chalam buddhi, etc. So it is not as though we are putting them down, but we want to test our own understanding, why that doesn't make sense based on what the Samanvaya for the Vedanta is. So the verse number 5 is testing the authenticity of the understanding, the completeness, the Samanvaya of the understanding, by not only your own buddhi, but also the imported buddhi of some very intelligent people. And you said, okay, let me see what you're saying. And so we examined all of that. So this is verse number 5. And so in verse number 5, Swami Maheshananji had given the title Atma Avishishtaha. Avishishtaha means that once everything has been examined and dismissed, then what is left is really nothing but Vedanta. What is left is Atma alone. So this is called Atma Avishishtaha. So up to this point, the primary focus was on the Chit Dhatu, on knowledge, experiences, thoughts, okay, up to this point. And not only as much in the Dakshinamurthi stotram, although certainly we also used some examples, but Swapna and Jagara, dream state and waking state, comparison and contrasting is a very important one. It's a very important one. And all of that work in contrasting and comparing, etc., is based on the Chid Dhatu. Chid Dhatu means that you have to see how, you have certain thoughts in, because really what makes a dream is your own thoughts. Is your own thoughts. And what makes the Jagara Avastha is also your own thoughts. So really it is nothing but different kind of thoughts. And so the comparison and contrasting of those two was very central to the first 5 verses. Okay? Now we take in the 6th verse a different direction. And how? So please see this new direction that we are doing. And in this one, the direction is not the Chit Dhatu, but Sat Dhatu. The examination is on existence, isness, as opposed to the knowledge of knowledge, as opposed to my thoughts oriented, whether the thing is there or not. And as we do so, as we proceed on this, you will see that just like the examination of the dream was important in the Chit Dhatu, here in the examination of the Sat Dhatu, deep sleep is the example given. Until now we have really not talked about deep sleep. In this verse, now we are going to see the relevance of deep sleep in our thinking, in our vision, in our conclusion. Okay, and so again, I think Swami Maheshanji also had pointed out, and this is also true from the other acharyas also, that really speaking, both the dream state and the deep sleep state are carefully designed by Ishvara for your eventual moksha. And so we saw that in the Mandukya class also. There was a word called Manishi, and I think we talked about it in the last class also. So Manishi means Mananashila, means one that can extract some meaning where most of the people just go over it and don't understand it. Like in the case of most of the people, dream and deep sleep. Deep sleep is a bit more important to us because it is very restful, very pleasant, and we want more of it. So there is a lot of work going on to make sure that sleep is good for everyone. So there is more attention to the sleep. But other than the fact that it is useful to me as a rest, I don't think much about deep sleep. Similarly, about Swapna Avastha, I don't think much about it. But in Vedantic way of looking those are your ticket to freedom. They are very important. They are like diamonds in the rough. And like children who do not understand the value of diamonds, similarly the non-educated people don't think much about it. But in Vedanta, the examination of both dream and sleep stage is extremely important. In fact, those are the doors that lead to moksha. In some way, I would even say that you could even say those are called Shivalinga. Shivalinga. So, we think of Shivalinga as a kind of a elliptical stone. And so we should understand the words Shivalinga. So Shiva means freedom, beauty. Shiva means absolute blessing, nothing but joy. This is what Shiva means. Lingam means some kind of a hint that allows you to be Shiva, to understand Shiva and be Shiva. So lingam means, there is a Sanskrit definition for it. Lingyate anena iti lingam. By which something is known is called lingam. So even street signs are a lingam. When you say San Jose, trend that direction, you cannot go to San Jose because otherwise you'll be lost. Where is this? Which direction should I go? So there is a very clear sign. You say just come this way. This is called lingam. So both the deep sleep and Swapnavastha, dream state, I think are called Shivalingam. They should be called Shivalingam because they are a hint on understanding the Shiva in us, in that manner. So this 6th verse is now going to focus on deep sleep. And we will examine that in some depth. I think we should be able to finish this probably in about 3 classes, the 6th verse, including today. I think we don't have that much to do. There is another utility of the 6th verse. The main utility is what I just described to you, that it gives you an opportunity to examine the Sat Dhatu, the Sat Swarupatva, the isness of the Atma. This is the main one. A secondary one is to seriously take the next best approaches to the understanding which is given by Buddhism. So this was already given in the 5th verse. You remember? Chalam buddhim shunyam. So we already looked at that Buddhism has 2 versions. One is called Chalam buddhim. The other one is called Shunya buddhi. So we saw that. So here we are going to examine that in a little bit more detail and even understand what Buddhism is. And if you're really very serious about it, then you should read all the 33 verses of Manasa Ullasa, because it goes into great depth on Buddhism. And part of the reason is that for people that have not studied Vedanta very well, they sometimes think the two are the same. And they accuse Vedantins of saying that Buddhism is nothing but a modern version of Vedanta. And some of the terminology used by Gaudapada, who is the Guru's Guru, Parama Guru of Adi Shankara, was accused by many people of being Buddhist. And a lot of other acharyas of Vedantas also are saying that you are just splitting hair, they are the same thing, it's not that much of a difference. Absolutely no. There is in fact a huge difference between Hinduism and Buddhism. Huge difference. And so an examination of Buddhism is it's an important one. Again, we have nothing to do. We're not going to get into a contest. It's not like, it's interesting. Buddhism also is a non-proselytizing religion, and so is Hinduism. And so it's not as though we are competing or anything like this. But I think people should know what masquerades as truth is not true. And so that allows us to see why is that the case. And we should see the differences between them. So anyways, in verse number 6, there is a secondary objective of verse number 6, which is to debunk the theories of Buddhism, especially the Shunyavadins. The Shunyavadins. And so that is also the case for the verse number 6. So with that, let us do this. So what I'm going to do is do the following. I'm going to do the word meaning of the verse number 6, so that you are, my objective is that as we have been chanting the 10 verses also, you should really be very conversant and you should have that and commit to your memory. And then as the verses come to your mind, the basic concepts behind them should also be revealed to yourself. This is what our progress should be. So with that in mind, I'm just going to go into the word meanings of the 6th verse. Then I will briefly examine some of the basic concepts of Buddhism that are being espoused. And I'm not going to go through all the verses of Manasa Ullasa. In fact, I think I was reading this Mahadeva Shastri's book. And I think that the English version, we can quickly go through the verses and I will make some comments about it. So we will see the Buddhistic view. And then, of course, our response to the Buddhistic view also will be given. But I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because that's not what our main objective is. The main thing I would then do is to look at the utility of deep sleep as a point for our analysis. This is the main thing. And that's that probably will happen. I'll devote a good amount of time for that as well. And so I'm thinking that should come after we have finished all the quick examination of Buddhism and so on. So we'll see how it goes. That's my plan for verse number 6. So with that in view, let us look into the word meanings of verse number 6. And so the definition of verse number 6 is Atma Sadrupam. So because why? Because here the examination of Atma is not Chit Dhatu, which we have already done, but Sat Dhatu. And what does it really mean? How are they different? All of that we will see later. So now, I just before I came here, I made a quick translation, and you can either write it here or we'll make a copy of it and send it to you later. So, Rahu grasta divakara in divakarendu sadrishaha. Right? This is the where did I put my Rahu grasta divankarendu sadrishaha. So, grasta means one which has been eaten. Eaten means it's been swallowed. Swallowed is a good word for this. Hidden. So the way the poetic version of an eclipse is, either a sun eclipse or a moon eclipse, that there is a person called Rahu. It's not as though we are confused, there's no person. But we think of a person who has taken a bite out of the sun, or a bite out of the, you can see how this, like supposing you are eating an apple, how the apple gets bitten off. You cannot see the rest of the apple. Similarly here also, so he says just like Rahu and Ketu are the two devatas, that so basically it means they hide the sun from you. And so this is an important example, as we will see, how the Atma also is hidden. And what it means is, the Atma is never interrupted. It is seemingly interrupted. I'm almost giving you the final answer of the deep sleep. It looks like the Atma has disappeared. I have disappeared, but it hasn't been disappeared. The sleep has simply taken a bite out of me without disturbing me. It appears I am disappearing. So that's the whole idea of this whole verse. The Rahu grasta divakara. So divakara means the one who makes a day is called divakara. Is the sun, or Indu, or the moon. Sadrishaha, just like that. So just like an eclipse of the sun or the moon are hidden by Rahu, Maya Samachadanat. Similarly, the Maya Achadayati, Samachadayati. The prefix is used because it completely hides. Not even a trace is left for you. As it happens in deep sleep, you completely disappear. You're not there even to observe that you have disappeared. Only later on, as this verse will say, you will say, oh, I slept well, but while you were there, you had disappeared. So, Maya Samachadanat, by the hiding of the Maya, Yaf Puman. So, Puman here is translated as Purusha or as Parameshwara, Ishvara, by Swami Paramarthana, by Swami Maheshananji. This I'm taking all from Swami Maheshananji's book. So, Maya Samachadanat, Yaf Puman, that Parameshwara, whose sense organs have been dissolved for the time being. Your sense organs are upasamharanata. Upasamharana. Samharana, samharata is a sarana, upasamharina. Same thing as moha samharine in the previous number 5 also. So means the one that have been resolved, they've been diluted, they've been completely gone. Leenam, in Hindi also, in Sanskritam also, leenam. Leenam means that it gets dissolved, you cannot even see anything. And whose sense organs have gone into dissolution, where sushuptaha, in deep sleep. When that happens, when the Parameshwara, who was functioning as each, Parameshwara is each one of us functioning as a human being, when we enter the deep sleep, it's as though there is an eclipse of me. I am eclipsed. And what happens when I am eclipsed? Sanmatra abhut. Sanmatra abhut. I am just existing. I am not existing as anything. Because right now I'm existing as a male, female, Indian, American, this, that, or the other. Existence is characterized by some form. But in deep sleep, I just am. And the interesting thing is, everybody is the same. When you are sleeping deep sleep and when I'm sleeping, we are identical. We are identical even now, except for our forms of the bodies are different. But there we are totally different because the bodies and this karana, etc. have all dissolved. What a beautiful thing. Really, deep sleep of everyone is the same. And so sanmatra abhut means that sanmatra means purely sat. Purely sat. I am. And this is where the departure from Buddhism comes in, because the Buddhists say, what? No. You cannot just, you are not there. In the deep sleep, you are not there at all. So we say, what are you talking about? And here's the reason for it. And so, sanmatra abhut. Abhut means it becomes. You don't become anything. It's not as a new thing, but you gain the status of sanmatra. Then we can add word punaha. Again, the same person. Yaha here means the same Ishvara. Same Ishvara. Prabodha samaye, upon waking, an interesting thing happens. This is an important thing to see. Prabodha samaye, upon waking up, prak aswapsam iti. Prak aswapsam. I was sleeping. So this is a past tense of swap. Sushupti, all the same dhatu. Aswapsam is the past tense, means I slept. You don't even have to say I was sleeping. I slept. I was asleep. And now I am awake, you can add. Obviously, that's very obvious. When you say I was sleeping, you're not sleeping now, you're talking. That means you're no longer sleeping, but you were sleeping. This is recalled. The same person who was sleeping is now awake, but recalls the sleep. Recalls the sleep. So this is the crucial piece of evidence. Meaning, it's not as though you cannot say, how did you sleep? And you say, what? What sleep? I don't understand what you're talking about. Just like, sometimes you can say, didn't I see you at Safeway shopping this morning? And you say, no. What are you talking about? I was not at Safeway. You must have said, oh, sorry, I thought I saw you. It must have been somebody that looks like you. So he says, yeah, I don't know, but I'm sitting at home. I never went to there. So just like if you say, what did you have a nice sleep? And you say, what are you talking about? What sleep? What? Nothing. You can say, I didn't have as good a sleep as I wanted to. I woke up a couple of times. That famous thing that I slept like a baby. That means I got up every hour and I cried. So you can say those kinds of things, but really, for most of us, or many of us, sleep is so wonderful. And you recall that. So that means you cannot recall that if you were not the same person that fell asleep and the same person who woke up. So this is not complicated, hey Buddhists. This is very simple. You cannot do this. All these kinds of hair splitting and so on and so forth. It's the same person, my dear. Not any different. So what it means is that when this eclipse is over, it's not as though the sun has been damaged. Something has been taken out from the sun, and now it's a different sun. This is the problem with these. I'm not so sure this is such a good idea. This is how it falls down. Anyway, we'll have to deal with that. So it's not as though the sun remaining the same, something covered it. So here what happens is that something covered your sense organs. And you know what covers you? Maya. Maya samachadana. As I was telling you that it's that the sleep is a phenomenal form of Maya. Amazing. How it completely transforms you. It's not just you are, when you are sleepy, a little bit sleepy, then you are not completely asleep. That's not it. You're knocked out. You're in a different world altogether. It's a very powerful thing. And then it creates another experience of a dream on top of that. What a creation. We have to really pay attention to this and see. And from there, we can draw a lot of conclusions, as we will see when we start to talk about this in the last part of it, about sanmatra, saddhatu, and the deep sleep and all of that. We will do so. So anyway, the word meanings are now over. So he says, Rahu grasta divakarendu sadrishaha maya samachhadanat sanmatra karana upasamharanata yah abhut sushuptuf puman praga swapsamiti prabodha samaye yav pratyabhigyayate tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye namaidam Shri Dakshinamurthi. So here another important word is pratyabhigyayate. There's so much discussion on this in the Vedanta Shastra. Pratyabhigya. Pratyabhigya means recall, remember. And what it means is you cannot recall unless you were there to begin with. It's the same person, not any different. And this would also be carried forth in the next verse. Balyadishu api jagradashi tatha sarvasu avasthasapi vyavrittasu anuvartamanam amityantas purantam sada. Very similar to that, we will see that also. The sameness of it, absolutely no change whatsoever. And any interruption is just an outside covering, has no effect on the Puman, on the Parameshwara, the Atma, no change whatsoever. So this is the thesis that Vedanta gives. But here, now that's all I wanted to do on the word meaning until we start to discuss the analysis later. But here, the Buddhists come up with all kinds of theories. So, I'm just going to not go into the Sanskritam of Swami Maheshanandji and so on. I'm just going to take a very simple version of this. And this is pretty good. I actually read it. So, he says, I won't even read the Sanskrit here. I'll just read the English. How much time do I have? So maybe about 10, 12, 12 minutes we will, I think. So it has about 13 verses. Yeah, I think about 13 verses before the verse number 6 of Dakshinamurthi is given. So I think we can cover those. And then after the Dakshinamurti stotram, the verses will come later on. We will do that next week. So here, a question in the form of the Buddhist is given. So he says, if as in Swapna, the whole universe exists within, some of the English there is old straight, within even in Jagrat, it's okay. If in the dream state, the whole universe exists within, just like in the waking state, does anything appear to anyone in deep sleep? Then how can we say that who persists there as a conscious entity? What happens to you? I can understand that you are always connected to those two other experiences, dream state and the Jagrata Avastha. But the Buddhists, these are questions from a Buddhist. Tell me, how will you say that you were there in the Sushupti? What happens to you? Nothing happens to you. You are not there. And then it says, Buddhists continue to say, that all experiences are momentary and they are self-defining. Later on he will even say that that's the nature of the world. Everything defines itself. You don't need Ishvara. This is the way it is. It all appears. They are pulses and they're all moving. And so I can see that they're moving in dream state and in the waking state, but they're not moving, so they're not there. The world disappears. So this thing that you say, this is Atma, is the same, it doesn't make any sense to us, is what they're saying. Then, some technical aspects of Buddhism are given. So, there are, roughly speaking, and I'm not doing complete justice because I don't have the time to really go into this in complete detail. What Buddhism says is that there are 4 outside molecules, and those are four of the same that we also say, which is Vayu, Agni, Apaha, and Prithvi. And they don't think of Akasha as one of the positive things. So they don't think about Akasha. So this is an important thing. What they're saying is that if it does not exist in front of you, it is not there. This is a very important thing to understand. And in fact, most of the religions, not religions, but schools of thought, follow this reasoning, that you have to experience it. If you don't experience it, then you are not there. Something is not there. So Akasha is not experienced. It is a void. And so therefore it is not as is a fifth. You say it is a fifth element, we say no. And so similarly in the deep sleep also, nothing is experienced, so it is not there. It has to be there for you to experience. So the Buddhists actually have four elements, four molecular elements that they agree to. They don't agree to Akasha. Then they have 5 inner qualities called skandha. And so these 5 inner qualities determine your kind of thinking. And this interaction between the inner skandhas and outer elements determine your whole life. And you have to balance the two of them. And if you balance it, and there have some differences, and one of them called Kshanika Vijnanam, means that everything is in a flutter. And the other one is a Shunyavadinaha, which says that flutters are also just momentary. Only the silence between the flutter is the reality. And that also is not you, the Atma, it is just complete voidness and silentness. Some kind of a thinking that they all do. So that's the formation of their thinking. This is how it is. And here Swami Maheshananji says that Buddhism, as you know, is based on Vedas. Gautama Buddha was born in a Vedic society and so on. But he never really got educated. He came out with his own experience that everything is a problem. The whole universe is a problem. And everything is momentary. Kshanika Shanikam. Dukkham Dukkham. He came up with 4 or 5 things based on his own experience, and then you should just sit under a tree and meditate. And as such, he has completely debunked the very truth of Vedas, did not study it, and became very popular because it seemed to give some people some solace. And whole edifice has been developed, and it is just not true. So this all skandhas and so on, we don't talk of any of this. You can make up anything. You can say that, calm thinking is skandha number 1. Disturbed thinking is skandha number 2. Sure, you can do that if you want to. But it's not supported by the Vedas. And so really speaking, most of the religions are nothing but a distortion of the Vedic thinking, which is the basic thinking of the whole world. And people borrow it, but they just make their own versions of this. Sikhism is also another one like that. That really, there's only 10 gurus. After that, there is no more gurus. You don't need any more gurus. And you just have to, they do Granth Sahib, they do all of this. And I don't know if they study it or all. And they're all borrowed from the Hindus and so on. But then they put them down. And so everything is nothing but a distortion of the Vedic thinking. And Buddhism does a very good job of it. And so we have to take it seriously as to what they're saying and where they're going wrong. So that's why it is being discussed. So anyway, so he says that Anyway, so there was some description of how the objects and sense organs, they interact with each other. And there is a description of the various skandhas. There is Samgya Skandha, name, quality, act, species, and the idea of a composite whole. And then there is a Samskara Skandha, and moksha is a continuous stream of pure states of consciousness, unmixed with alien ideas such as those with sense objects. So they have their own ideas for this. And then they say, basically, this is an important tenet of Buddhism, that really the whole world is nothing but pulses, where each pulse, before it dissolves, transfers its content to the next pulse. A lot of I've studied some books on this where you say, wait a second, you are saying that they are unconnected? So they say, yeah, we are unconnected. So one momentary experience dissolves itself, but transfers it before it dissolves to the next one. How does it transfer it? What is the medium of transferring? If you say that, no, it doesn't quite die before transferring, that means there is a connection. There is a bridge in between. How? And so they come up with some experience of life, just like we have seen that in movies, you have these pulses of the scenes. And if you play them very fast, then it looks like it's continuous. And so they say that now the whole world is like that. The whole world is not like that. You have taken one example and you've amplified it to set up the whole world. Anyway, so that kind of discussion goes on. So there, in the middle of all this verse is presented. Now you can see the relevance of it. I think we might be able to finish it even next week. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I'll spend some more time. But now you can see the relevance of this verse, which says, my dear Buddhist, nothing interrupts the sun. There is an eclipse which doesn't change the sun, which doesn't harm the sun. It appears that the sun has been bitten off. That's it. And so similarly, the deep sleep, there is not a disappearance, not a cutting off of the Atma, but the hiding of the Atma, hiding of the Atma by the Maya, just like Rahu hides it, that's it. And so there is no discontinuity, it is the same. In fact, the Atma cannot change. There is no mechanism, it doesn't have any parts to change. And so all of that discussion is based on that. But in relevance to some questions by other people, including the Buddhists, and gives us a chance to this is what is called Chitta Shodhanam. Chitta Shodhana means it gives us a chance to purify our own thinking. And in the process, it solidifies our thinking. So this is the 6th verse, which is Sanmatraha, and as opposed to Chit Matraha. And so that we will take up. And then the analytical aspects of it in examining the deep sleep will be taken up next. And then depending on how much time is left, I will go over to the rest of the verses also. It's difficult to do that because I'm neither doing justice to them, nor do I have the time to go into each one of them. But you can get the sense of it as to what the Buddhists are saying and what our answers are to those questions. So with that, I'll close the class today. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Yes, sir.
When you say Atma Pratyaksha Swarupa, so Atma is not Pratyaksha, it's Aparoksha. So what is
No, I didn't say
meaning?
pratyaksha. Pratyak.
Pratyak.
Pratyak. Pratyak means inner,
Oh.
not pratyaksha. Yeah. No. So the two words used are pratyak and parak. So parak means outer or far, farther, and pratyak means inner and nearer in that sense. One cannot be any nearer than oneself as one is. That's the nearest one it is. But I think probably the best way useful to me is to use the English word manifestation. Atma is not an experience, it is not a manifestation. You cannot, it is in fact, it's not even an experiencer, because the experiencer is the ahankara or the jiva. And so, it's like in is it the 15th? No, it's the 13th chapter of the Gita, where it says kshetra and kshetrajnaha. So the human being is the kshetrajnaha, and the outside world is the kshetra, and both of them are false. The dreamer and the dreamt, both of them are false. Only the sakshi is real, and so which is unmanifest in that sense. So that's the meaning of the word pratyak. Yeah. Yes, Kalpana?
It's not directly related to what we are studying, but just like Bimba Pratibimbavad,
Yeah.
there is also Avachedavad. What is Avachedavad?
So avacheda. Avacheda is the room space.
So room space becoming a total space.
So one which is seemingly enclosed, avachinna. Avachedyaha. Avachedya means one which has been seemingly enclosed. Akasha, Mahakasha is avachidyaha, avachinnaha, chedyam. But the process of avachedanam is that for transactional purposes you can say small space, but you cannot say this. Space can never be small, it is infinite. So from a paramarthika satyam standpoint, it is always unlimited. But from a vyavaharika standpoint, you can utilize it and say, I don't have enough space, and so on. Yeah.
So that means Atma and Paramatma, Atma becomes Paramatma and it's all one. Is it talking about unity or oneness of Atma?
Right. So you can say that really the Atma is already the Paramatma.
Right.
Atma is only one Atma. Paramatma and Jivatma are one and the same, just like big space and small space are one and there's only one space. But you can say that from a transactional standpoint, the Jivatma appears to be separate for each one. When I'm saying that I want to do this, and you say, no, I don't want to do it. So there is two different Jivatmas in that sense, but there's only one Atma. So the Jiva and the Paramatma. So one thing to say is that Jivatma, I see that I am, like even this example today about Sanmatra and the next one, Balyadishu api Jagradadishu tatha. I see that I am the same person. But still I'm only looking at myself as a Jivatma. That just like our analysis of ourselves, that I was born on such and such day. How can you say you were born if you also didn't know that you are the same person who was born then? When I was a baby, I was brought up like this. So it's the same person. But that sameness really doesn't help me. The reason it doesn't help me is because I'm still looking upon this as a single person, but a Jivatma. As a Jivatma. Only when I understand that the Jivatma is nothing but Paramatma, then the value will just come to me, as it will. And so, really speaking, the value of the teaching is for a very clear identity. Right now I feel that I'm not challenging it. It's not saying that how can, if you're not part of a Vedanta, you can challenge it, that how can Jivatma be Paramatma? I don't do that. I'm accepting it. But the phalam of it is not there for me. I don't feel like I am the Paramatma. And so when that is done through some analysis and then through Nididhyasanam and so on, then the sameness, really speaking, the thing that one has to see is that when you define yourself as a Jivatma, you still define yourself under the control of life and death. You don't think that, you can't visualize that I can survive. But the meaning of the Jivatma being the same as Paramatma is when you can visualize, and you cannot experience because you're not dead yet, but you can visualize very clearly that I cannot die. There is nothing in me to die. I cannot be made up of a substance which can be destroyed. In fact, I cannot change. I am exactly. So this is the Saddhatu and the Chiddhatu. When that becomes clear, then the value of the Jivatma becoming, quote unquote, Paramatma becomes more palpable. Yeah.
So going back to deep sleep,
Yeah.
that seems to be the state, where there's no difference in anybody, it's all oneness. Anybody's state in deep sleep
Correct.
is the same.
Yeah.
In fact, the Jivatma, this thing, the transmigration, then you acquired and carried all these vasanas and unfinished business and travel again.
Right.
So in the deep sleep state, it's all oneness.
Yeah. So it all is one all the time. It is one all the time. But we are deluded into thinking that it is not all the same. Very much like saying that even if there are different waves at different times, at different places in the ocean, it's nothing but the same water. It's not as though at one time I was not water and now I've become water. But yeah, you're right that if you wanted to feel yourself as the same, then you would want all the other waves also to subside, you also subside, and you can see, I am the water with no one else is different from me. So when Vedanta says it's not necessary, it's just that it is not clear to you. Right now your buddhi is so much of a wave buddhi that you cannot even think about the fact that the Jivatma and the Paramatma are the same. So the ocean and the wave are the same. You cannot even think about it. So this is what happens when you are asleep. Even though it is the same as everywhere, it's the same even now. But at this point, our differences become so dominant that my mind cannot even go further to understand the unity even at this point. And the tragedy of a deep sleep is that if you were aware of the fact that in deep sleep there are no differences, if you are aware of that at that point, you have moksha. But you are not aware of it. And so even though you are the same and you have the experience of the sameness, you come back as foolish as you went in, as Swamiji Dayanand used to say.
Acquire it right away when you wake up.
Yeah, right away when you wake up, you do have an interesting chance, as I think I've discussed
Some
it.
transition, there is a transition.
There's a transition.
Get a little light.
Well, I think more than that, what I think we should get into a habit of, and perhaps we should do that also, that the process of becoming a jiva, there are a few moments where you feel I am just a conscious person. That's it. I'm just a conscious person. I'm nothing but, in fact, I am a consciousness. This does happen if you work on it.
Meditation, you can reach that sometime. Really
Yeah, but I'm talking about a very beautiful natural time. So what happens is that when we wake up, we don't pause to think about the fact that my basic nature is consciousness. And so we immediately get into what I have to do and problems and so on and so forth. When in fact there are moments before you take on the identity of the day and the identity of your jivatvam, there are moments where you can say, my goodness, right now I'm just consciousness. And without really changing anything, you slowly evolve into a person. You say, what day is it? Where am I? And then everything just pushes you into being a specific person. So, yeah, that's a good thing, a good habit to get into in the morning. And it's also very pleasant because you still have the vestiges of the deep sleep and the calmness that comes with it. So anyway, I think that, so just to clarify that, yes, in deep sleep you are the same, but you are also the same everywhere else. There's just that our dissimilarities become dominant and hide our similarities. Yeah.
So that is what in Ashtavakra Gita we are studying right now, is to pause at the moment of awakening and do your meditation, the nididhyasana at that time, even
Yes,
before
very much so.
anything else happens,
Yes.
maybe even before you open your eyes.
Yes, absolutely.
Just in bed,
Yeah, yeah.
just think of that.
Yeah.
So that is
True. I mean, it takes a lot of practice to do, but
True.
yeah, it can be done. Absolutely. So Shankar, you're back.
Yes.
How long were you there in India?
17 days.
17 days. Bangalore?
Bangalore, yes. I went to Mysore also
Oh,
for 4 days. It's very crowded, traffic is very it's better here. They go in an orderly fashion. There it is like you don't know. The guy wants you to turn right, comes from the left side, cuts you off within 90 degrees.
You can never drive.
I can't read the mind.
Right.
I was reading Swami Maheshananji was saying that when the Russians started to really spend a lot of time in India, when we got friendly and so on, after the independence, they all said, this country is so haphazard and still it works, so that means there must be Ishvara.
True.
it somehow works.
Somehow it
It
works.
works.
Yeah, it works.
Guruji, the system thrives on chaos only.
It does. Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Ashtavakra Gita
Mhm.
is very convincing.
It is,
It is powerful, and the way Swamiji has presented the views, my gosh, I mean, it's like, come on, wake up, you know?
Absolutely.
It's so beautiful
Very good.
subject.